Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Jason Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Jones, broadcasting from the beautiful hill country of Texas. And as you can imagine, here at the Vulnerable People Project, it's been an intense couple of days. We have safe houses across Central Asia. We serve vulnerable communities in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, not to mention the West Bank and Gaza, the war between Afghanistan and Pakistan, which you may have missed. As my wife said today, honey, I think World War III already started. The world seems to be a war. And at least from the perspective of where we are sitting here at the Vulnerable People Project, that's been the case. So it's been intense. But I wanted to have our next guest on, Joe Enders. Joe Enders was recently canceled. His wife is pregnant. He lost his job working for the Archdiocese of Detroit. And we're going to get into all of the reasons why this happened. But when I heard this story, I thought of something that the French Catholic anthropologist René Girard said. He's sort of famous for this idea that when one stands in solidarity with the scapegoat, when one stands in solidarity with the vulnerable, they become as vulnerable as the person they're standing with. In other words, if you kiss a leper, people aren't going to want to kiss you. If you kneel down next to someone a woman caught in the act of adultery, you might just get hit in the head with a rock. And if you speak up and advocate for vulnerable Christian communities across the Holy Land that are facing a brutal and relentless ecclesiocide, which is, what is an ecclesiocide? It is the erasure of a Christian or of a religious community. And the religious community that is being cleansed from the Holy Land as we speak in Bethlehem today. The Christians in Bethlehem are having their neighborhoods divided, being forced to choose whether to not be able to go to school and go to work, basically COVID policy forever, or flee where their family has been since the first century. This episode, as all of our episodes, is being brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, standing in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world when the world has walked away. We are a Catholic apostolate. And sometimes people say, if I donate to you, this is going just to defend Catholics, right? No, we can't do that because we're a Catholic apostolate. So right now, most of our support, most of our effort is serving vulnerable Christian communities in Nigeria, Sudan, the West Bank, and Gaza. But VPP right now has guards in front of Muslim girls' schools, synagogues, and churches across the world. We fight for the Uyghur, the Yazidi, the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, Christians, Jews, vulnerable people suffering violence, because the mission of the Vulnerable People Project is just very simple: to do what we were created to do, love God and love our neighbor. And we want to communicate the love of Christ through sacrificial love with discipline and fortitude in the most challenging places and times. Go to our website, vulnerablepeopleproject.com. Look at what we do. And if you're inspired to be a part of it, scroll up to the right, click, and become a donor. We really need monthly donors because that's what allows us to grow our work. And our work in Nigeria right now I've been very ambitious. We've just added 26 new churches. We've added security for 26 new churches that are on the front line of Islamist violence. In fact, last month, several communities were attacked. And without the budget, we went ahead and began to provide security. So we need you to stand with us. Vulnerablepeopleproject.com, scroll up to the right, click, and become part of the team. All right, Joe Enders, welcome to the Jason Jones Show. You're coming from Detroit, Michigan, I'm guessing?
That's right. It's right there on the shirt, Detroit.
Now, before we get into the topic of the day, are you a Lions fan?
No, actually, I was raised in Chicago for most of my life, so I'm actually a Bears fan.
Well, I too am a Bears fan, and I'm from Chicago.
Really? I'm from the west suburbs, so I'm about an hour.
Which suburb are you from? Where did you go to high school?
I went to Glenbard East.
So you went to Glenbard. I played Glenbard West in football. I went to Homewood Flossmoor High School. And then
no doubt.
Amos Alonzo Stagg. Yeah, in fact, we played the day they shot that movie, Lucas, at Glenbard. And that's like our team on the field in some of the B-roll.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's a beautiful community. What I was going to say is I began last season rooting for Detroit because I didn't think we had a chance. I thought it was going to be the Lions' year, but it turned out to be a pretty good year for us, right?
Yeah, well, look, I'll root for Detroit #2 because it's my adult home, but my childhood home is obviously always Chicago, and it's always going to have my heart. I was super happy when the Pope came out and I found out that he was from Chicago. I was like, let's go.
I normally wear my Chicago White Sox hat, but today I'm wearing my VPP Palestine flag hat. But
No, it's totally fine. I'm a Cubs fan, so it's good.
we'll just vet the guest. He's not. He's a heretic.
Yep.
Well, you'll love this. I was in Rome for the conclave. I was actually in Paris shooting a movie. I'm a filmmaker. That's how I feed my family. And I left the set a day early. I begged my director to let me leave, and there were no flights left to Rome, so I had to fly to Florence, take the train in. So I had breakfast in Paris, lunch in Florence, dinner in Rome. It was a good day. But when I got to Rome, I ran in and the black smoke came up. Well,
Yeah.
I was in my Sox hat, my Chicago White Sox hat. I used to, now I wear the hat the Pope likes, but I used to wear the one from when I was a kid. I had like the early 80s Chicago White Sox hat.
Yep.
So I was wearing that, and we were there waiting for the smoke. If you remember, the three birds flew by the chimney. Yep. The Trinity was right there. And then the smoke comes, and they didn't make it clear where he was from. In fact, we thought he was from Chile. I was there with my filmmaking partner, Eduardo Verastegui. And so Eduardo and I were like, who is he from? Armando, is he from Chile? We don't know. And so everyone's leaving. We're leaving. And this like 6'5" black guy goes, you, here, stand. And I'm like, yeah. And he puts like an earpiece in my ear. And there's a camera gets in my face. And he goes, are you from Chicago? I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden I hear, this is Lester Holt.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was live with Lester Holt. And he asked me if I was, I found out from Lester Holt that the Holy Father was from Chicago. And he asked me if I was excited if he was from Chicago. And I said, I don't know yet. Is he a Cubs fan or a Sox fan?
Yeah.
And Lester Holt said, he's a Cubs fan. See, we had fake news right out the gate. They were saying he was a Cubs fan.
No, he is a Sox fan.
He's a Sox fan. But I was like, when Lester Holt said he was a Cubs fan, I was like, makes sense. He's probably some rich kid from the North Side, and comes from a wealthy family. But no, he is from the South Side. I'm from the South Side, and his favorite pizza place is Aurelio's, which was my first job.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Aurelio's, they put the provolone on it, right? On their pizzas.
Very good. Yes.
Hey, I know my Chicago pizza. Look, I'm a Geno's East guy. That's always been my spot. But I love the provolone. I love the provolone.
So Geno's East is great. I think the best crust is Illuminati's.
Okay.
The best sauce is Home Run Inn.
Okay.
And the best of good Catholic family, the Costellos own that company. And the sausage is Aurelio's. By the way, good Catholic family. But yeah, Chicago pizza is great. And I know you're just recovering from COVID. Yeah. The reason I wanted to have you on is because of your commitment to truth and to serving the vulnerable. You exposed yourself to the most brutal form of calumny in our society, which is to be labeled an anti-Semite. And there's just two simple truths right now. First of all, and I think you would agree with me, Jews are not responsible for what the state of Israel does. Israeli citizens themselves are no more responsible for what the state of Israel does than we are responsible for the 86 schoolgirls that died in a bomb that fell onto an elementary school in Iran. No, even more. So if Israeli citizens aren't responsible, I'm English American. It would have been silly to blame me for the Falkland Islands attack from the British in the 80s, right? You're British, right. You're English, just descent. So, but Christian Zionism, I believe, is an apostasy, not a heresy. And maybe we can talk about that. I think it's apostasy. And ethno-nationalism, the Jewish, they say Zionism, they play a game with us. Well, Zionism is simply believing that Jews have a right to a homeland. Well, right to the homeland isn't a right to an ethno-nationalist state. And this is not what you mean, because I think all decent human beings want everyone on this planet to have the right to live in a homeland where they are protected and safe, including the Palestinians. But we don't believe in collective punishment, and we don't support apartheid and ethno nationalism. And because you stood up against an apartheid state and against ecclesiocide of Catholics and against a heresy that is a very plain teaching. I mean, by the way, it seems as if all of Paul's letters were written to address this heresy today, if anything. So can you give us the background? Did you know you were walking on thin ice, or were you just doing what you do? Tell us, you know the hero's journey. Let's start in the ordinary world. And how did you get thrusted into this great adventure of cancel culture?
Well, I mean, I've always had I want to say, a long time experience with cancel culture. I've been dealing with it for a very long time. I'm the type of guy that's very uncompromising on the church's teaching, and I'm talking about perennial teachings. I'm talking about magisterial teachings. I'm talking about doctrines. I'm talking about even disciplines. I'm very strict about what the church teaches about specific things. Now, obviously, first and foremost, I think it's blatantly obvious based on what we've been witnessing over the past couple weeks that every human soul is imbued with the image of God. We have the Imago Dei imprinted on our souls. That's who we are. We are made in God's image. And to tarnish that, to go against what the church teaches constitutes a just war and preemptively strike somebody simply because we have a heretical sect of Protestantism injecting itself into our government is evil. Second of all, I've always been very, very upfront about the excesses of feminism breaking apart the family. I've always been upfront about the excesses of sexual immorality and abortion and contraception infecting our culture. All of those things throughout the past have put me on a lot of people's, naughty list, let's say. And
But
you
yet
already
you were
know.
able to work for the diocese. So, I mean,
Right. And so when you ask if I was on thin ice, the question is, I don't know. They hired me, right? I never heard anything. I never had any issues. It seemed like I could go to the chancery. Somebody would come if somebody wanted to come meet with me. Everything was always cordial. I never heard any issues. People seemed to like me at the archdiocese. And then one day I get a call. It was on Shrove Tuesday, actually. That's the most debilitating part, is that I was put on administrative leave on Shrove Tuesday and was fired on Ash Wednesday. So what they said on Shrove Tuesday, well, my pastor called me because I was a business manager at a parish in the Archdiocese of Detroit. I don't want to elaborate on what that was because I don't
you just said
necessarily think.
was. So did you lose that job too?
Yes. Yeah, so that was the job. I didn't work for the Archdiocese.
Okay.
I worked for the parish, but the Archdiocese ordered my pastor to fire me. So they didn't give him much choice in the matter. And on Shrove Tuesday, he had told me that an outside source, he believes maliciously, sent screenshots of my Twitter to the Archdiocese. I don't know the content of this collection of tweets. No, they didn't tell me. Then they said, my pastor said, I'm putting you on administrative leave. And he's like, I'm waiting to hear back from the Archdiocese on what to do. I imagine that's where my pastor would have either defended me, threw me under the bus, whatever he might have done. I can't tell you because I have no idea. He calls me on Wednesday and says, the Archdiocese, not me, have decided that you are to be terminated. And I was like, well, why? What is it? What were the tweets? What is the reason that I'm being fired? They told me that all I'm allowed to tell you is that you violated the Archdiocesan Code of Conduct. And I was like, okay, how did I violate it? What's the problem here? Can you be pastoral here? Can you help me? I would like to learn from this. If I'm going to another employer, I need to know what I'm doing wrong here so I can better myself, so I know what to do moving forward from here. And he says, the Archdiocese has instructed me not to tell you anything about what happened. And I said, well, they have to. And he's like, actually, they don't have to. And I was like, okay. And that's kind of where it ended on Shrove Tuesday. No severance. No continuation of my health care coverage because I was
You reached out to
graciously.
a lawyer and see what your options were?
Well, we'll see what happens with that. There's some people that I've been talking to that have given me some good advice, but I don't know exactly what avenue I'm going to take just yet. I'm still looking into it.
So I want to go back a little bit because, your generation, Gen Z, what year were you born, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a zillennial. I bridge the gap between millennial and Gen Z. I was born in '95, so I'm
Okay.
31.
All right. So Zillennial. So which generation, you seem to me like you sound more like the Gen Z experience.
Probably, yeah,
Were
probably a
you,
little
were
closer.
you raised in a devout Catholic family, or did you come to the faith on your own?
I was, and I think that's a little unusual. But my dad was a devout Catholic. My mom was a cradle Catholic, and my grandparents on my paternal grandparents were very strong Catholics. Specifically, mesmerized by the apparitions at Fatima. So that's what really kept my whole family just so devoted throughout their lives. We had a yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. We had a special devotion to Saint Therese of Lisieux. So
Sorry,
I have a
guys.
no, it's
Yeah,
great. I love
shame.
it. We can't never be ashamed of Fatima. But I have Our Lady, or I mean, I have a Saint Therese third class relic that I carry around my neck at all times because my family has had a devotion to her since roughly she became a saint in the 20s.
You were blessed. I'm an adult
Yeah,
convert from a family that kind of is tried to crawl its way out of the wasteland. By God's grace, my mother was baptized 11 days before she passed away just last week, and received her first Holy Communion 11 days before she entered eternity. My father's now daily communicant, and I'm very grateful for that. But your generation, and we'll talk about Gen Z. This generation is really the most abandoned and brutalized generation in the history of America. And the boomers, how you call us all boomers, anyone basically a millennial and older is a boomer. And I think that's actually an accurate description because Gen X, millennials, and I have two millennial children. I have children from 36 down to 12. Um, but my millennial children and I see the world through the same eyes. But my Gen Z children are, especially my sons, very angry,
yeah.
and
Jaded, I dare say, a little
yeah,
jaded. Yeah,
I would say that they're clear-eyed in a way that we are not at the stakes. And I always try to lay it out to like my generation. I'm a filmmaker. I've made, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 films. I've written 4 books. I have two films in festivals right now, and one in post-production, one in pre-production. But I'm sitting here saying, will I ever be able to make another movie again because of AI? Will I ever get a book contract again? Now imagine I'm 21 years old and I'm a creative writing major. I'm at film school. Imagine that my peers are competing. If I'm a 22-year-old man, I'm competing with 55-year-old men for women because of OnlyFans and all these apps.
right.
And it's disgusting. You've been brutalized by pornography your entire generation, and everything is being taken away from you. Everything. Your 75% of the jobs that exist today say that could be gone in the next 12 months to 4 years. Your prospects for a spouse and for a healthy, happy marriage, it seems elusive, and it will be elusive for most of your generation. So and now we have literally that we're being thrust by the age of Aquarius baby boomer generation, um, are thrusting us into World War III gleefully. And so if it's not bad enough, hey, you're never going to get married. You're never going to have a career. But good news, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So that's where you are. And I think the only thing to save, and this is why I'm grateful for you and your show, is the gospel of Jesus Christ properly presented through the magisterium from the church. And if it's not that, America's going to drift to a a post-liberal, post-Christian, neo-pagan, violent right. That's the future. That's the future if voices like yours are silenced and can't communicate our faith in a way that has meaning to your generation. This is what's frightening. Um, I heard you call yourself like you're a parish orphan, and how many of your generation feel orphaned by the church, and where can that lead? Is it going to lead to Islam, nihilism, fracturing into the Orthodox
Sure.
communities?
I
It's a lot I
actually
just spilled there, but I pick
no,
up.
no. What you're saying is absolutely true. We are the Gen Z folks, are the people that are left behind, the children of the Great Recession. We've known suffering, we've known hardship, and the only difference is a lot of our parents were divorced. A lot of our bosses did not care about our advancement. They did not care about the advancement of the country. They only cared about the advancement of themselves. There is an epidemic of selfishness, and that epidemic of selfishness has led to an epidemic of no accountability because all of the boomers in their very, very anti-patriotic business practices have sent all of our jobs overseas. They've opened the floodgates of America to let in criminals, dangerous people, and people that come from economies at which they were abused by their governments. And they expect
Illegally come
Americans.
into our country to abuse them here.
Right,
We
exactly.
didn't
And
give them citizenship or work visas.
correct.
We wanted them in a dangerous, unaccountable underground
Yes.
economy to be exploited.
Correct. And that's what I'm seeing right now. They're taking advantage of the fact that other countries abuse their workers with low wages, then bring them here to pay them lower wages, but just a slight bit higher than the wages that they were getting in the other countries, which make us all work for lower wages, as you know how supply and demand works. So we're in a situation as Zoomers right now where we see the baby boomers hoarding about 50% of the country's wealth. With the baby, 50% of the country's wealth. That is unprecedented in American history at their age. And what we're seeing now is that young people cannot afford houses. You have giant firms buying up single family homes in the hopes of, I don't know, renting them or making a return on the investment in the future. And we're seeing houses 500% more expensive than they were just 10 years ago. 500% more expensive than they were 10 years ago, and wages haven't even doubled yet. Inflation has seen itself at rates as high as 7%. It's only just recently slowed down. Our money's worth less. We can't save. We don't have enough money to invest. We can't afford a house. And how the heck are we going to get married if we can't do any of those things? We're
You know,
miserable.
I want to go back to something you said that when I would hear this, I would flinch. And I've come to understand it's true. When you said we have suffered, and it's easy for us boomers, Gen X's, millennials, boomers, to go, how did you suffer? Well, you suffered from parents that couldn't take their eyes off their phones. You suffered from divorce. You suffered from abuse by pornography. You suffered from thoughtlessness to the future of the economy. In my book, The Great Campaign Against the Great Reset, I talked about the villages and what a disgusting phenomenon that is. That you have people that have built wealth in a community that was there when they were born. They benefited from the infrastructure. They benefited from the rule of law. They benefited from the education and the culture. They created personal wealth. Then as soon as they sell their little business, they go buy a place in Florida. And depending on how well they did, it's on the East Coast, the West Coast. And if you didn't do so well, you're in the middle. But regardless, you're going to drink margaritas and drive your golf cart around till the day you die. What used to happen is that you would sell your business, you would get on boards, you would be on the board of education, you would partner with your children and grandchildren to start businesses, you'd be in the Lions Club, the Knights of Columbus, you'd make pancakes, you would give back into your community till your last breath, and you would be buried in your community. And now you really are an orphaned generation. And we'll bring this back around to you. You are a millennial, a young man who was fired for your job. You weren't even told why, but we know why. You probably tweeted out something about the heresy, the bigoted, the editor in chief of Babylon Bee said that the Catholics and Orthodox in Gaza weren't Christians because they were, you know, to the
Because of the
sense,
joint statement of the patriarchs condemning Christian Zionism. As soon
yeah.
as you come at them, they start puffing up their chest at you because they know that that's the core. That's the core of the problem. And as you I just want to say something about what you were saying before we move on to this subject. Gen Z was robbed of its inheritance. And Gen Z's inheritance, at least in America, is Western civilization. That's what we were to inherit. The Catholicism. We did not get a beautiful church that we were promised. We got a church that leaves us behind and cares about everybody else in the world more than us. They don't view us as vulnerable people. Young people are the most vulnerable people in the world because they haven't experienced life. You know, I'm not trying to say that anybody getting blown up by bombs isn't more vulnerable. What I'm saying is that if you are a bishop in America, the most vulnerable people around you are the youngest people that are just starting their lives, especially the ones that went through divorce. They have been robbed of an identity. They don't know who they are, and the who they are that they were told about was someone to be hated. Your history is to be hated. Your race is to be hated. Your gender is to be hated. These are all the things that these young zillennial men were told, and Gen Z men were told. And so now they're an identity. There are people without an identity, without parents that gave them the proper cultivation or the proper inheritance, just wandering the desert right now, looking for somebody to stand up for them. And I feel like I'm in a unique position right now to speak for them and say that we need more from our churches because it's not enough. We are failing. And to see what happened to me happen is facilitating the suffering onto us, perpetuating it and facilitating it. You can't be doing both. You need to be an assistant in our lives. You need to be the pastoral and listening church you proclaim yourself to be.
We need to listen. And, uh, a lot of Orthodox were like, well, wow, we don't listen. That's a buzzword for
Yeah, yeah.
nonsense. But it's this idea, like you said, our generation is suffering, our generation is vulnerable. You're extremely vulnerable, and lack of identity leaves one open to being exploited. And this is going in a different direction than I wanted to go to, but I actually this interests me a lot. The plight of your of millennials and Gen Z, right? And I think I was a father at 18, and I remember at 36, and I'd been a father since I was 18, but and I was always pretty intentional on ordering my life in the service of my children and their future. But at like 35, 36, which is all, 20 years ago, I just remember thinking, like, no, all of my actions, every action and inaction of mine to my last breath needs to be to leave my children and grandchildren. I have 7 children now, 4 grandchildren, is to leave them a beautiful world. Um, and so the lack of identity, which I didn't have an identity, I was an Ayn Rand objectivist,
Right.
atheist, searching for meaning, searching, I believe as a Randian, as a young, optimistic Gen X boomer, whatever, I believed in natural rights and freedom and the inviolable dignity of the human person. And what was the source of this? Led me to Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand through Nietzsche and Sartre and Freud led me to the Catholic Church, because basically Nietzsche, Freud, and Sartre dismantled Ayn Rand. And then I had to say, well, but I do believe in this sort of exalted idea of the human person. And I finally looked to reveal religious truth. I was so anti-Christian, I looked to the Jewish scriptures and Islam before I looked at Christianity. And because the Christianity was presented to me as moral relativism, hippy dippy muck. But thanks to like tripping over Fulton Sheen, Chesterton, and Hilar Belloc, literally tripping over them, I wandered my way into the Catholic Church, which I am so grateful for every day that I have. Not only I'm a Catholic, I have a Catholic family, Catholic children who've prayed every night of their life and before every meal in their life. But here's this. I want to ask you this about your struggle. Like you said, a black friend of mine was trying to help me understand the Groypers, and he said, "Jason, you don't get it. My mom had me when she was 16. I was raised in a neighborhood that was it was very black, Mexican, white. And I felt I grew up in a post-racial world in a way. The beautiful part of the South Side of Chicago I'm from, even Dateline NBC did a special on us in our neighborhood in the late '80s about just how all these kids date each other and their friends, and it's just a deal. And now I'm seeing in this generation, and this is when my black friend helped me understand what the Groypers. He goes, Jason, yeah, you might have grown up in a black neighborhood, but it doesn't matter. Your superheroes were white. You celebrated St. Patrick's Day. You celebrated Thanksgiving. You dressed up as a pilgrim, right? You were the great guy, the good guy, the hero of every story. You don't understand. He said, these kids are like little Malcolm X's and little Cassius Clays, these white kids.
Oh, that's so good. I've never heard. That's great.
Well, and this is where I think and this is where guys like you are so important. He said they're abused. They're told they're ugly, they're evil, they're awful. And this is going to lead them to overcorrect. Like, we can look at Cassius Clay. I'm beautiful. I'm too pretty to be a heavyweight champion of the world. And then he goes to the Nation of Islam, not Orthodox Islam. He goes to this like little cult that says that the blacks are these superior beings. It was a black supremacist movement.
It was was it the Nation of the 5%ers or the?
No, the 5% Nation's different. The Nation of Islam, the 5% Nation's a bit more Gnostic.
Gotcha.
The Nation of Islam is also very strange, but of course, both Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X moved from their racialism to a more broad, universal respect. But they had to start out with this, like, I have dignity, I have rights.
Right.
Stop abusing us. And so what scares me is if voices like yours are canceled. Can you talk about the temptation? We're going to talk about anti-Semitism. Racism and anti-Semitism in your generation is it is a real temptation that people are falling into. And we as Catholics are not this, nor can we ever be this. As Tucker Carlson did such a good job, I think when he was I forget who he was interviewing. Maybe it was Nick Fuentes, but he was saying we can't be racialists. We're Catholics. But can you talk to me about like this temptation to there are those who are tempted to Jew hatred, racism, anti-Semitism, bigotry, because of the abuse they've suffered, and the only thing that can rescue them from that, I believe, is the Catholic faith.
Well, that's absolutely true. Nothing will temper the man. It's one of the cardinal virtues is temperance. Nothing will temper the person quite like enacting the faith. I think that there is a temptation with a lot of some people. I think the Groypers are much more tempered than some of the more extreme elements. And in a way, I think I remember Nick saying this on his show one time. It was a long time ago, but he said, you better hope I win, because whoever is not me is going to be Hitler. He is something like that. It was something along those lines. Like, and he means the real Hitler, not when he throws his hands up in the air. He's like, yeah, I guess I'm Hitler, because he's sick of being called and demonized all the time. There's a very clear distinction there. And with the Groypers, specifically, I'm friends with a lot of them. I talk to them. I want to make sure that they know the faith properly. That's like one of the most important things to me. And I feel like the church runs away from those types of people. They run away. That's bad PR. I don't want to deal with that. So I feel like when they don't prioritize, and again, not through correction, through cultivation, this idea that no, it's not actually a objective evil to be a white person. And it's not nothing even wrong with liking being a white person, or liking American history, liking cowboys, liking pilgrims. Like you were saying before, there's nothing wrong with these things. You should be proud of this. This is your inheritance. In fact, it's been given to you to turn into something beautiful, and more beautiful than it currently is. That's the goal. And instead of teaching them these things, they're like, oh yeah, racism's evil. We've condemned racism for the 5,000th time. And I was like, well, they don't understand what you mean by racism, because these people aren't racial determinists yet.
Yeah.
But they are tired of being demonized. And if you keep demonizing them, it's going to get to the point where they do just fall into the excess, which is hate, as opposed to, maybe believing that people from different races are a little different. That can soon turn into, I hate these people for being different. And we don't want to get there. That's not a place that you want to be.
The devil's a judo master.
Yeah.
The devil has got his black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he will take you one way or the other. He's going to get you to the ground. And racialism, I fear for Gen Z, this is a real temptation. My children are mixed race, and my sons show me these apps where they're these like Instagram accounts and TikTok accounts where mixed race kids troll sort of the white people that, like, I guess, harass white kids for being white. The liberal white people who go in and chastise white, attack white, and then the mixed race kids just plow them. There's like this, it's a thing. And then they create all this content attacking these dippy, boomer white people lecturing white kids about how evil it is that they're white,
Well, it's funny, like you talk to anybody, if you actually have friends that are mixed race, I happen to, if you, in your case, you have children,
race.
And in your case, you have children that are mixed race.
I made them myself. And
yeah, right.
Yeah.
These are people. These people exist, and a lot of the Zoomers, for the first time in decades, are sitting back and being like, maybe I want to be a little bit more white. Maybe I want to embrace my white part of my mixed race identity. And everybody's freaking out. They're writing articles in the Atlantic talking about Latino white supremacists and stuff like that. It's just like crazy headlines that you can't even imagine seeing. And it's just like, no, I think these Hispanics are just, kind of recognizing that they have a noble heritage that is on the white side, and that's it. They're proud of that. They want to be a part of that. They think it's cool. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. And they're being chastised for it, which is just leading them deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. The desire to troll just goes higher and higher and higher and higher because they're already angry at boomers. This is only going to make them angrier. So let's go. And I think that's what you're seeing right now.
My wife and I, one time we had down and we were like, what are you more proud of? I'm like, to my kids, you're more proud of being white? And my wife's like, I'm more proud of being Chinese. And we would say what each one, I'm like, we have cream corn. And my wife would say, we have spring rolls. I'd say,
right,
George Washington. She'd say Bruce Lee, and Shaolin monks, whatever. We're going back and forth. And then my 12-year-old, who was like 9 at the time, didn't think it was funny. And he said, I don't care what we are. I'm proud of it. I don't care. I'm proud of you, my parents and my grandparents, and I don't care what you are. He was sick of the game. And when I talk to my boys who follow some of these kind of Groyper characters on social media, I'm like, hey, they make fun of mixed race kids. Like, how can you follow these guys? And they just laugh and they say,
yeah,
we're trolling your entire generation.
Yeah, totally.
And I said, well, you may be trolling us, but this is what concerns me. I said, you may be trolling us, and that's fine. But you better be careful who you pretend to be, because you become who you pretend to be. And maybe this campy, affected racialism or anti-Semitism that we see coming from Gen Z, because they're just so tired of being battered, and this is like a campy response. Do you think there is a danger, like if the camp could become actually part of our character?
Yes, and the thing that is needed, the only way that will not happen is if it remains Catholic fundamentally. I'll even watch Nick on his show sometimes wanting to say something. No, we're Catholic. I'm not going to say that. I can't.
It's a good impression.
He grew up 30 minutes from me. What can I say? Like, I have the same accent he does. But he's I mean, you see him stopping himself. You can watch in real time on the live stream the leader of the Groyper movement being tempered by the Catholic faith, and it's good for him. It's good for the Groypers. It's good for everybody. Where it's like, you're so angry. You're just so angry at the world right now for how legitimately, by the way, badly it's treated you. And who are the people doing it? And it seems to be people. It seems to be the boomer generation and foreigners. That's what they view it as. That's what they're seeing from the outside looking in. and that makes them angry. And so if they don't have the Catholic faith to say, no, it's okay for you to be proud of your, ethnic background. It's okay to love Western civilization. In fact, Catholicism is the philosophical foundation of Western civilization. If you can't, and so you need to follow these virtues. What makes white people so awesome and their culture so cool and everything so deep and so true and so correct is because it chose to embrace Catholicism. The entire Roman Empire chose to embrace Catholicism. Well, then when you view it that way, it becomes a little bit more tempered. You become a little bit more reverent. You become a little bit more, okay, let's take a step back. We have to remain Catholic under all circumstances, no matter how angry we are, no matter how much we want to make sure our race doesn't go extinct, or whatever their viewpoint is at the time. And no matter how angry we are at Jews, we have to keep that love. And that love is that universal love of Christ on the cross, knowing that he died for every single human being on earth, whether they choose to accept it or not.
Well, and to that point, you can look in the 1920s. There was the Europeans after World War I. There was a strong movement against Zionism.
Yes.
And one of the leaders in Europe speaking out against Zionism was Saint Maximilian Kolbe. And he wrote, I have the complete works of all of his letters and all of his writings and all of his papers. And it was a drumbeat against Zionism and its connection to pornography, homosexuality, trans, communism. And St. Maximilian Kolbe wrote about this, but from a deeply Catholic perspective. He consecrated his priesthood to the conversion of Jews and Freemasons. His newspaper, The Night, responded to that other response to Zionism that was rooted in, kind of childish interpretations of Germanic legends and myths, and its obsession with the occult and runes, and organizations like the Thule Society, which birthed the Nazi Party. And then Maximilian Kolbe, who was a leading antagonist to Zionism in the 1920s, became the loudest and most vocal critic of the Nazis in the world, to the point that he died in a starvation bunker in Auschwitz, and he landed there because of his defense of Jews. And so this was a man who was not naive or ignorant to the threat of Zionism and ethno-supremacist ideologies, Jewish ethno-supremacist ideologies. Right. But he also spoke against that and the racialism of the Nazi Party. And so I kind of feel like we're there again. But the only difference is Catholic voices like Carrie Prejean Bowler's and yours and others are being suffocated in the crib. And then all young people are going to hear are voices that come from, Protestant heretical sects. But most likely it'll be post-Christian, right, pagan ideologies like we see with Julius Evola, Alexander Dugin, and others who are very popular with Gen Z.
I see a lot of that, and I think that at least on the front of Zionism and Jewish supremacy, I think those are two related, but I think separate issues. I think that they are pretty much sold on the fact that Jewish supremacy, one, does exist, and two, that Zionism is a toxic and heretical form of Christianity.
You mean Gen Z is sold?
They're sold on that idea. I don't think
my sons and their friends verify that for me. Yeah,
right. They're very sold on this idea, and it's because it's relatively irrefutable. I mean, the dispensationalists in the United States of America, which is a specific group that believes in the dual covenant theology, that the Jews are operating on a parallel covenant with the church today. It's just not true. The political state of Israel is not the biblical Israel. And one of the things that you brought up were the slogans used by the AJC, the American Jewish Congress, and then also the claim that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, as defined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. So that was accepted by the State Department as the official definition of anti-Semitism And one of the tenets is anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism in 2016 under the first Trump administration. So today, we're now being told that you have to accept these two premises that the AJC puts out all the time regarding Zionism. That first premise is that the Jews have a right to a homeland and that Israel has a right to exist. So that is extrapolated, and not only is it extrapolated, it's expounded upon by these groups to say Jews have a right to their ancestral homeland. There's a huge problem with that narrative. The biggest problem for a Catholic would be that I don't know if anybody here is a Old Testament scholar, but anybody who reads the Old Testament knows that the ancestral homeland of the Jews is a lot bigger than that tiny little sliver that they have on the Mediterranean right now.
Ambassador Huckabee sure knows it.
Yeah, Mike Huckabee knows it after the Tucker interview, right?
He spilled the beans. He spilled the beans.
And everybody's like, well, but do you want Muslims running that land? And I was like, I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want that land stolen from people. I don't want that land stolen from the 30% Christian Lebanon, that's for sure, because that would be entirely subsumed into the greater Israel project.
Christian neighborhoods for the past 48 hours.
Yeah, exactly. They're aiming tanks at churches, at the crosses on top of churches in Gaza.
The Holy Father believed that was not an accident, as did Cardinal Pizzaballa when they hit the cross at Holy Family Catholic Church.
Exactly. And all of this is being done because this group believes in that. Jews do not have a right to their ancestral homeland. I'm sorry, they don't. It's 3,000 years ago. Do the Romans have a right to Greece and Spain? That was only 2,000 years ago. Do Italians have a right to Greece and Spain? Do they have a right to Kosovo, to Serbia, to Albania? It's insanity.
You like my shirt?
Yes.
I tell people I'm mixed race. I'm Anglo and Saxon with a bit of Norman, but we'll never forget. Old English never forget.
Right. So that's the other thing. It's like let's give England back, or let's give everything back to everybody. In fact, I guess Russia also has a right to all of Ukraine as well. So I mean, like this is what we're talking about. It's an insane idea to say that Jews, by virtue of their blood, or if you're a Christian Zionist, by divine right. Catholics don't believe in divine right monarchy. That's a Protestant invention.
And the founders of Zionism are atheists.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's simply a claim. It's simply a claim that they're laying so they can conquer outside of the parameters of a just war. Now, I'm not saying that Israel isn't a sovereign country. All I'm saying is that Palestine is also a sovereign country. Lebanon is also a sovereign country. Iraq is also a sovereign country. And you don't have the right to violate theirs either.
To that point, I think there's a great argument to be made for the state of Israel. Historically, with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the meddling of the colonial powers, specifically France and Germany, and we want order. We want peace. So we're not going to forever fiddle with borders. Okay. All the borders in the Middle East, for the most part, are arbitrary and new. Fine. But the Palestinians have a right to live in peace. And the fact that we celebrate, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson went to the West Bank and met with the settlers that were attacking Christians and told them, this is your land. He didn't go meet with the Christians that descend from the Jews that accepted Jesus, actually. And who are really the first victims of Zionism in my mind are the Jews. It splits. I'm not saying Jews have dual loyalty, but I'm saying every Jew is told that they should have dual loyalty by the Zionists, by Zionism. Now, most Jews, I think, reject that. Most of my friends do. In fact, I think the loudest, most articulate critics and relentless critics of Zionism in the United States, they're Jewish. But it's a pressure. And then the form of Judaism that they celebrate is not representative of most of the Judaism around the world. It was actually a very diverse religious community. We see the ethnic cleansing of Jews by Zionism. I don't know if you know this, but in the 2010, 11, 12, countless thousands of Ethiopian Jewish women were forcibly sterilized against their will. The Mizrahi Jews, the Jews that have been there for all of time, the Iraqi Jews that were there from the Babylonian exile, um, the Ethiopian Jews, they are second-class citizens, and they are victims of Zionism, and we're seeing the Samaritans, what I call the Samaritans trad Jews. You know, they're really trad Jews. That's all they are. They're like, not this hill, this hill. Sorry. But they're being completely cleansed. There will be no Samaritans in a generation. And the Yemenis Jewish culture, the Iranian Jewish culture, the Iraqi Jewish culture, all of them Mizrahi Jewish, the Ethiopian, it's going to be homogenized.
Well, Zionism endangered every single Jewish community in the Muslim world because the ostensibly, the nominally Jewish Orthodox Jewish nation is Israel. That's what they claim, that Orthodox Judaism is the national religion of Israel, even though it was founded by atheists.
I
is
just want to thank the audience.
persecuting.
Oh, you're just getting over COVID.
Yes.
So thank you very much for doing this with the COVID fight going on.
No, of course. I'm getting over it. Okay. The problem that I'm seeing is that that the Zionists have taken I think something far more resemblant of the spirit of Caiaphas than any other Jewish group in the world, and are now imposing that on the Muslim world and making Muslims hate Jews more than they ever have before. And that's causing persecutions for Jews that exist in the Middle East. And moreover, it's causing persecutions of Muslims in those areas as well. One of the problems that I have with there are secular Jewish movements in the United States and the West that are promoting open borders,
Paul Singer,
free passage,
guy that funds.
Free passage, but my point is free passage for refugees, while simultaneously the right-wing Jews in the West are pushing for Zionism, and the Zionists are pushing for wars with all of those countries that we're creating refugee crises in. So there's this, and again, I don't know if they're actually working together. I'm not going to
Same guy, same money. Paul Singer funds open borders, funds LGBT, not to T.
I don't want to say it. If you want to say it, you can say it, but I'm just saying that there's a synergy going on here.
The same guy that funds Christian Zionism, funds open borders. I want to get to that because I think that is
the Middle East is being emptied into the West for Jews to conquer for greater Israel. That's what I believe.
We're being told, and I work across the Middle East, and I have to say, I don't find anti-Semitism in the Middle East. I'm just so
happy to hear that.
I really don't. I don't find it in the West Bank or Gaza. Now, obviously, it exists. Obviously, there are Islamist organizations and radical organizations. But when I was in Iraq, traveling with the Peshmerga, as they were fighting, Muslims were fighting to liberate Christian and Yazidi lands that were conquered by ISIS, a group that we can imagine where their funding came from and their uniforms came from, and their weapons were all American weapons. Their vehicles were all American vehicles. And the Peshmerga had Toyota trucks and AK-47s from the Cold War. And what I would hear from the Iraqi community, especially where I was, the part of one of the communities I was in Iraq, El Kush, had an ancient community of Jews that had been there since the Babylonian exile.
Wow.
And they were cleansed in 1948 through nefarious activity by Zionists, actually creating fear in the community so they would flee to Israel. You know, Joe, for 750 years, Christianity survived. Not that it was, a Unitarian hunky-dory liberal paradise of religious diversity, but for 750 years, over almost 70 religious communities existed, including the Yazidi, diverse Christian communities, diverse Jewish communities from Iran to Yemen, through the Holy Land, and a century of American hegemony and British meddling and French meddling and ethno-nationalist Zionism we're seeing an end, not only of the Christian communities and the Yazidi people, but of the diverse Jewish communities. And this is just a tragic reality.
Yeah, and this is kind of where we have to take a step back and open up our Bible and be reminded of what Matthew 16:18 promises us, and it's that the gates of hell shall never prevail against the church. We will survive this. No matter what happens, God has our back. The church will proceed indefectibly throughout time. Um, but we need brave voices. We need more saints. We need martyrs. We need white martyrs, red martyrs. We need saints now. We need people to stand up and speak up for what is right and just don't even care what the consequences are for doing what you know God is calling you to do for the church. That's the most important thing. The church is a whole lot more. This experience of me losing my job has taught me more than anything else that the church is more than bishops, popes, and priests. It's the entire body of believers, anybody baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we even have friends that haven't been baptized, Father and Son and Holy Spirit, that may be able to assist us on that journey as well. And for me, I just want anybody that's listening right now to know that there's a reason that hope is one of the virtues, faith, hope, and charity, one of the supernatural virtues. Keep that in your heart. Remind yourself of that and do not be afraid. Our lives don't belong to us. Our lives belong to God. Did this decision that I made to speak out against Zionism hurt my family? Yes, but my primary duty is to God, and God will take care of my family. And God is taking care of my family. That's what I've learned from this experience. If you do what's right, God will take care of you. God will provide. You will be able to get through these times. Just do not live your lives in fear. Do not live your lives in cowardice. God has called us to be brave and to stand up for the right for what is right in this world. And I I didn't say this yet on the show, but there was a spot fund that a friend started for me, and it's raised quite a few $1,000s for my family to be able to get through this trial period with my family. And I put my faith in God by speaking out against this. I knew that if for any reason that if I were ever to be punished for these things, that I would be okay in the end. And God is providing for me. So, and I'm going on all these shows, I'm talking to people like you, and I've just found it extraordinarily enlightening. And it's something that I want to share with all of your viewers as well, just to be not afraid.
Well, and that's why I founded this organization, to be in solidarity with the vulnerable. And you made yourself vulnerable by standing up for the Christians in the Holy Land and standing up against the apostasy of. And we had some technical difficulties that through editing magic the folks won't get to see, so it cut into a lot of our time together. I do want to have you on to talk about Zionism as a heresy. I say it's an apostasy because if you deny that Jesus Christ is not is if you deny that Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of all of the promises of Abraham, I don't see how you are a Christian. And what Jesus did was end the othering of the human family. There was no longer Jew or Gentile. And, we used to be called racist because of you were bigoted to a community. Now we're called racist because we refused to be bigoted towards Arabs or towards Palestinians. How dare
Right.
you
Right.
not accept the fact that this entire racial group is should suffer collective punishment and has collective guilt. You are a bigot and an anti-Semite. And so I wanted to have you on so we could stand with you, and we want to support you.
Thank you.
We want to support you in your new apostolate. And I don't think that, they think they can cancel you, but they've liberated you to really reach a broader audience, because I think just being connected to a parish or a diocese in a way shackles you, because bishops do have different concerns and constraints than we as lay Catholic men have. And so now you have really, I believe, been liberated. And I really want to talk to you more in the coming months and years, because um, really my generation and those of us older really need to spend the rest of our lives. We need to get out of the villages and into our village.
Yes.
We need to get off the golf cart and put down the margarita and the golf clubs. And we need to pick up our grandchildren and head over to Little League baseball practice. We need to be engaged in our communities, in our parishes, in our families. Because I can tell you, as someone who's Gen X, I think that we live the most charmed life. And it's sorrowful to me that the natural human experiences that we got to have my children and grandchildren are being robbed of what gives life the most meaning and most beauty. And so I just to have you on and talk to you and to support your platform and your show. So can you tell us, we'll put it in the show notes, but can you tell us how can we donate to this fund and how can the audience support you and where can we follow you?
Sure, you can just click on the link below. It's a spot fund that was started by my friend Charlie. He was worried about me, and you can donate there. I believe it allows you to do a single donation, so we obviously appreciate that. But you can also check me out. You can check out my live streams and my other appearances on this subject, all over on my page at Red Top Report on YouTube. You can find my reels on Instagram as well, where I do a lot of apologetics. Same thing at Red Top Report, and you can
Can we
follow me on
donate to your
X.
apostolate there? Is there a donate link on the YouTube page
So
or?
we actually have a 501c3 that we just started. I'm working with Father Calvin Robinson and a friend of mine, Joe Gallagher, who is a business nonprofit expert himself. And you can go to commandmedia.tv. I'm starting a media company called Command. It is specifically oriented toward rebuilding the family, protecting Western heritage, and catechizing Gen Z.
You
That
know
is
what
the
Gen Z
express
needs to
goal.
do is get married, have families, do the hard things.
Yep.
Do the hard
And
things.
stand up for themselves. And
Stand
stand
up
up
for
for themselves.
themselves.
It's time. It's time for us to be adults. And we're gonna be. And we're gonna change this country no matter what stands in our way, we're gonna change this country for the better. And I'm gonna make sure that they're catechized when they do it.
Well, the next election is Gen Z is gonna rock America.
They sure are. They are not
And
happy.
I can't wait. And that
Yep.
reminds me, I have to go vote today. It's voting
Yeah.
day here in Texas. And I'm not telling people how I'm gonna vote, but it's gonna be a protest vote. I'll tell you that. People would be
Yeah.
shocked at I'll be voting straight party ballot. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wow.
So I want to be a part of Texas sending a message that you can't count on us to be there for you.
I mean, it's a sad situation, and I think that a lot of people are sharing your perspective right now. We're not going to be we can't just be abused like this anymore. We can't.
Mm-mm. No way. All right, brother. I actually have to jump on another show, then I have to go vote. But hey, we're gonna stand with you. If you ever need anything from us, stay in
Thank you.
touch. I'd like you, if you please follow our work, vulnerablepeopleproject.com. We have a campaign, savewestbankchristians.com. They started a new settlement called Shtema that will literally end Christians in Bethlehem and Betzahor, Shepherd's Field, the oldest Christian community in the world. And Trump has promised that he would stop the settlements. He has demanded that there be no new settlements.
Yes.
Israel has taken advantage of this war to rob and steal from Christians. But we can stop the settlement. So you should please share it with your audience, savewestbankchristians.com. But if you need anything from us, you know where to find us.
Yeah. Thank you. Look forward to coming on again. Just let me know.
All right. Congratulations on the baby and
Thank
get
you.
rid of that COVID.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties, and I'm about to go on some other radio shows today to promote our Save West Bank Christians campaign. So go to that website today, savewestbankchristians.com. There we document and we update it every single day, the settler abuses of Christians. In fact, there you can find a new Substack that we have created that will give you in real time updates every single time Christians are attacked anywhere in the West Bank or Gaza. That's savewestbankchristians.com and support that campaign. We want to do some billboards. One of my goals is to put a billboard in front of Pastor Hagee's church in San Antonio on Easter Sunday. So when people come out, they're going to see savewestbankchristians.com. But we can use all of your support. And also make sure you go into the show notes, follow Joe, and give his family some support because he lost his job because he just simply told the most basic fundamental truths of our church's teachings and stood up for the most vulnerable Christian community in the world, those Christians in the Holy Land. All right, guys. And so until next time, it's been the Jason Jones Show.